Welcome to Acquire Connected, the podcast that is your compass in the world of data across environmental, social and governance.
Welcome to the Acquire Connected podcast. This podcast features interviews with thought leaders and technology experts who are tackling data management challenges in the geoscientific, environmental and social performance industries and their impacts on the Earth's resources, the natural environment and communities around them. I'm Jamie Nobbs, your host for this podcast, and today we sit down with Steve Mundell, Director of Product at Acquire, to discuss the future of data management software, including how mining companies are changing their behaviour towards data management, the evolution of digital technologies in the mining industry, and where Steve sees the future of data management heading. Let's get into it. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you on here. Would you be able to start by telling us a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. It's great to be here. I'm Director of Product at Acquire, and so in that role, I head up R&D for our products. So my background is actually geology, so I'm a geologist by training, but that was many, many years ago, so I'm not sure whether that counts for anything anymore. But I guess my early years as a geologist sort of did pave the way for the work that I do now. And so when I look back, I can sort of see how the dots have joined up. So I joined a large mining organisation as a graduate in their graduate program, which is a fantastic way to start my career because as a graduate got exposed to a full environment within the mining industry. So not just geology, but also engineering, metallurgy, environmental, health and safety, the whole lot. So we got to see a lot of things, but I think one of the most fortunate things was that I started my mining career in an organisation that really valued systems. They valued technology and had a real culture around it. And that was something that really sparked my interest. So as a geologist, I was really interested in how technology was used to solve the problems that were being faced and wanted to see how far we could kind of take it. So that was really interesting for me. And it was quite before its time, I feel, the environment that I was working in. So I got exposed to some really advanced ways of working with things. So things that we hear about now, like single source of truth and that type of thing, that's something that the organisation had going really well, back 20 or so years ago. So the interest sparked in that kind of area kind of led to a career change where sort of moved from being a geologist working with technology and having a real interest in technology to more of a technologist helping geologists implement systems, and not just geologists, but other professions, right through to environmental scientists, engineers, and what have you. And so I guess that's where I find myself now is, from having that interest in technology being sparked in the mining environment to working in technology in full time.
Well, it sounds like you've been in the not only the geological industry for a while, the mining industry as well, but the tech side of things. How have you seen data management practices, particularly in the mining industry, change over time?
Been in and around the mining industry for 25 years or so. Over that time, there's just been so many waves and cycles and advances and regressions, centralizations, decentralizations, all of which kind of reflected a change in appetite for risk in organizations. But I guess the overarching themes when I look back at the changes in data management practices over time, the overarching themes that have driven change have been around time frame and dependency. And so when we talk about time frame, back when I started, time frames from collecting data to making a decision were quite long. And over time, there's been appetite to just reduce that to as fast as possible. And the dependency side of things is this view that data is the lifeblood of a mining operation. So there's this demand to have information available to help make decisions. So these two things have put a demand on improving practices around data, so to reduce the time, and that's kind of feeding this dependency. All of these changes that we see in those areas have been through investment in people, process and technology. And so with people over the years, you see changes from the skills that people have in operations becoming more specialised. So having people with data responsibilities, positions with responsibilities and accountabilities within that, but also the literacy or technical literacy of people increasing over time. In terms of the biggest and most valuable changes, change is hard in these areas because the old school ways of doing things are very embedded and difficult to move into new ways of working. So the biggest and most valuable investments have been in people in positions that provide strong leadership to forge the change. The processes within organisations changing to manage data in line with a strategic intent. So if we look back across those 25 years that I've been around, the types of data that's being collected is very different. Data can be in multiple forms. It doesn't need to be just digital data. We dealt with paper, acetate. We had vertiplans of information that had to be trolled through. Now that's changed to different types of data that we're dealing with. So process to manage it have been a big change. But then also the technology to enable the people and process. So that's an important aspect as technology enables these things rather than being a solution looking for a problem.
So you mentioned data being the lifeblood of an organisation. I guess the other terms we've seen is data is the new gold. With technology evolving, we've got things like sensor data coming through much more frequently. We're collecting a lot more data just in general. How do you see mining companies actually changing their behaviour to meet the new amount of data coming in?
When we look at this, it's important to understand exactly what data management is. Data management is about doing things right. So, in order to know, well, what are the things that we've got to do, you sort of look a step back, and that's where data governance comes in. And so data governance is about making sure the data is managed properly. So it's doing the right thing. So governance, do the right things, data management, do the things right. The changes in behaviour sort of have been driven by this view of data governance coming in, which gives direction and gives some boundaries and gives policy within which data management to work. And so you can view this, the change in behaviour, kind of on a maturity model from where organisations can become aware that data needs to be recognised as an asset right through to implementing data governance, and from that being able to build up data management practices to manage the data in line with the strategic intent onwards to be able to get continuous improvement. And so I think that's the changes that I've seen in the behaviour towards data management is this, I guess, push by organisations to become more mature around data practices. There's other things that are driving those changes, which I guess are inputs into the data governance, which is the precursor to data management. So things like cybersecurity and I guess the other aspects and the environment within which organisations work. So as those things become more visible and as an eye on those aspects, I guess that's what's driving the change in behaviour towards data management.
There are more regulatory frameworks that are now in place, not just talking about geological data, for example. There's a lot of conversations happening around environmental data, social performance data, those sorts of things, looking at the impact from mining operations on local communities and the environment around. People are talking about this being an alphabet soup of regulation, so a lot more complex reporting is coming in. How are you seeing this come into play?
Yeah, I guess alphabet soup of regulations, I guess it sort of reflects a sentiment of probably frustration, helplessness to some extent of what do I do? And I guess looking at that, it's sort of coming from ESG by its very nature, has a wide reach and includes many stakeholders. And it's fairly new in terms of its policy and in terms of the frameworks around it. So as everything catches up, you get this interlinked regulations which impact one another, and it's difficult to work with. Organisations are trying to get beyond a tick in the box around these things. So not just doing it because they've got to, but deliver some real long-time value. And the community can view that, and that's where I guess they get the support from. So when you add that together, so you've got all of these groups, and I guess they've got the needs there, but then you've got regulations overprinting one another, it becomes very difficult to know, well, what do I do? All these regulations and all of these other voices form some sort of obligation or guideline, and that demands you doing something or taking action. So it's just complex. There's a complex web there. It's very difficult to answer the question, am I compliant right now, or am I doing the right thing right now, especially if you don't have good data management. So if you don't know any real good measurements of where you're at, where you're going, and what you've got to do. having good data management practices around your processes so that you can plan what you've got to do, actually do it, check the results, then act on any discrepancies or any information and feedback that you get out of that process is kind of where organisations are trying to get to with all of these things to get out of this sentiment of not knowing what to do.
Well, it doesn't sound like these environmental or social regulatory obligations are going to be slowing down anytime soon. In fact, I was reading on the Ernst & Young top 10 business risks and opportunities for mining and metals in 2024 that ESG is actually gaining more investor attention than ever before. And the top 3 factors in there is local community impact, tailings and waste management, and water stewardship. Where do you see opportunities for mining companies to report their ESG metrics and actually stay ahead of the competition in the industry, not just, I guess, like you said, tick the box?
The opportunity around that exists to set goals and declare commitment and demonstrate progress. And so then it comes down to how to actually do that and to have a positive outcome around that within the community and to get value out of reporting and staying ahead of competition is transparency and evidence around the data that you're presenting, and that's going to help build trust. So that's the big opportunity. So the need there is the ability to efficiently use it in an auditable fashion. So know where did that data come from, which hands did it go through, what was done to it to get into this form. But added to that is getting access to that quality data fast so that you can act on any changes, any feedback that you're getting. So it comes back to that plan, do, check, act kind of framework, and being able to do that in an iterative form, quickly, openly, transparency, so that you can report on metrics and show the real progress that you might be making towards those goals that you've committed to.
So it's essentially like future-proofing what systems you've got in place to be able to not only just stay ahead of the competition, but stay ahead of any kind of regulatory reportings that are coming down the line in the future as well.
Yeah, that and being ready for change. It's hard to know where regulations might go and come from. So having a framework which is able to adapt to change and be able to still allow access to this quality data efficiently so that you can report and show progress is important.
And I guess in terms of having those frameworks and having that auditable and verifiable data, that will essentially help us regardless of what digital technologies are coming down the line in terms of innovation. We've seen the rise in mining companies using artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's sensor data coming through. We've got the Internet of Things that we're seeing a rise in how mining companies are actually utilising some of these technologies. Do you have any other examples of how data management are aiding these mining companies and where you see the innovation of these mining companies heading?
Yeah, so when we look at mineral recovery and environmental impact and linking those two, it could also add into their performance and efficiency of mining operations and what have you, as well as getting a deep understanding of the ore body, right down to the level of the individual minerals that are within the deposit and getting good understanding of those, how they're going to actually perform as they go through a plant, and then once they're done there, when they become waste, go into tails dams or whatever it might be. There's technology out there that is able to gain a deeper understanding of that. And that's on these time frame sort of horizons that were introduced earlier, not just on a strategic sort of term, so looking at a project level or forward looking, but into a tactical kind of viewpoint of operations on a day-to-day basis of what's actually coming out of the mine in through the plant, and being able to make changes that can have impact on the environmental aspects. So, how is the plant going to operate, and what are going to be the waste products that come out of it, and also on the performance. So, are we getting the best recoveries? Data management helps in these areas by being able to put this information in the hands of the right people at the right time. As you're looking at these complex problems of mineral recovery and operations and environmental impact, it's a multidisciplinary approach. There's so many inputs, I guess, into optimizing these things. So there's geological inputs, there's environmental inputs, there's engineering inputs, there's plant inputs, metallurgical inputs. There's a whole range of things. So data management practices aids minds by being able to bring all of that together. Again, coming back to our data governance perspective on going, well, what are the policies putting around this? What's the intent of what we're trying to do here? Giving the guidelines to data management teams to be able to tailor the practices to meet the strategic objectives of what this data is all about. So that's, I guess, one kind of area is, all body understanding, all body knowledge, but being able to really mobilize that knowledge and build that knowledge base of what this deposit is all about, what this thing that we're mining is all about, and how it can be optimized to increase the recovery and reduce environmental impact, and then onwards onto working well within the community and ensuring the social impact is measured as well.
So you mentioned having the right information in the right hands. One of the other areas that we're starting to see a lot more awareness around is when data gets into the wrong hands of people. We've talked about how data management practices can help optimize efficiency, optimize mineral recovery, reduce the environmental impact. But how are you seeing mining companies manage the risk of cybersecurity in not only using their data to improve their processes, but also protecting their data?
It's a complex one, but there's a lot to learn from other industries, although the mining industry does have certain things that are riskier than others. So we think about the remoteness of these areas. Communications are relied on quite a lot. So you've got remote operations centres. Mines are dispersed over wide areas. So environmental sensors and environmental monitoring can be spread over quite a wide range of areas. So the risk of cybersecurity attacks in those areas aren't insignificant and can have quite catastrophic consequences. Really, what it comes down to and what mining companies doing is implementing the various frameworks that are available, that are there to understand the risks that are actually out there, to quantify them, to implement controls to mitigate those risks, and then have processes around understanding those risks, managing them, but also identifying new and changing risks as well. So I guess in practice, that's things like implementation standards like ISO 27001 or other practices like SOC, etc., where there's accepted frameworks and various processes to look at cybersecurity, and then comes into the process of actually implementing that. And so vetting of vendors happening more often, the skills of people within the organisation becoming more knowledgeable around cybersecurity, so that there's those sorts of things happen to help organisations manage their cybersecurity risks.
That's interesting hearing about how mining companies can prepare for these cybersecurity risks or prepare their data for it. At Acquire, we've been around the block for more than 25 years now, so we have seen how mining companies have grown their data. In terms of our products at Acquire, we've got GymSuite that has been around as a geoscientific information management solution for a long time. How is that prepared to handle these cybersecurity risks as well?
Yeah. So I guess across all of the products, there's focus on these areas, in particular looking at frameworks such as ISO 27001 and having demonstrable controls around how we develop the software and how we have ongoing reviews of the technology that we develop, so that it is able to stand up to the requirements of the industry within which we work. And I think this is for all vendors, is being more responsible around security of the software, even if it's implemented within the walls of another organisation. The IT departments of those organisations will be wanting to know what are the security controls of the software that they're implementing. What happens if there's someone malicious on the network? What will they be able to do? So our efforts are in trying to understand that and to close off the significant risks that might be there, to ensure that the data is safe and is able to work within the standards that our companies demand.
Thanks for sharing it. Just interesting to see how data management works in our products, making sure that companies are in safe hands. So we've talked a little bit about digital technologies that are on the rise and how data management's supporting that. Cybersecurity, how data management can be protected in that area. But I guess let's go back to data management itself. Where do you see the future of that heading in not only the mining industry, but environmental and the social areas? How do you see data management evolving in the future?
Yeah, important to understand, what are the drivers that change in data management? Things like our regulation that might be around security, privacy, etc. There's other drivers around organisations wanting to be more data-driven, wanting to have more insight into their operations, having access to data in real time. An area that is driving organisations to be more data-driven is the area of data science. And so looking at ways to bring together data from different areas so that you can make decisions and new decisions which would have been very difficult to make in the past. And so from a data management perspective, being around a drive for ensuring that the data is ready for that type of analysis, so it can be trusted, it's understandable, and has all the right attributes, not just the data itself, but how was it collected, what were the conditions around which it was collected, and any other information that is relevant so that a data scientist can do the work on it. It's not just that it's quality, but it's the fullness of it. So definitely does weave into the future of data management, and I guess carries on from 20 or 30 years ago where stuff was on paper in large swaths, and now it's going on more advanced digital areas of trying to get insights out of this data through data science. The other drivers there are innovations that happen in and around the industries within which we operate. So it might be new technologies coming in or different skill sets or whatever it might be. So future of data management is sort of interlinked, within all of these sorts of things, and pulling data out of the hidden factory, I guess. There's one way of putting it. So the hidden factory is kind of the work that goes on outside of systems that we have implemented or we implement within our organisations that just don't fit. They're just difficult for people to work. And so people naturally want to get a job done. So they'll just do it outside of the systems. And so that's the hidden factory. So you end up with dark data out there, which is doing the job of running the business, but it's not visible. So the future of data management is bringing in fit-for-purpose tools that are able to pull that information, those factories, back into systems that are visible and are able to adhere to these various measures that have been taken to mitigate risks, like cybersecurity, etc. So you can imagine what happens if you've got all of this work being done outside of known security control, and the inevitable happens. So future of data management are these tools that are fit for purpose. So technology can help implement those practices and processes, and so that's where AI tools like that come into play to remove the busy work, the day-to-day things, help us with our current job, but then ultimately new problems are going to come along that we're going to have to focus on and kind of solve. So introduction of AI, not just for generating results, but actually helping with the process, will become a much more bigger feature of data management in the future. Together with that, I guess one of the themes talking through this podcast has been around data governance, and so having greater visibility or greater importance placed on data governance and how it reflects the risk frameworks within organisations. So as that becomes more visible and more embedded within organisations, you're going to see data management fitting in much more so with organisations. So rather than being a expert system sitting off to the side, not relatively known, is coming into the mainstream and having full visibility in lots of organisations. Now, some organisations are there already, but looking at a much greater population of organisations being much more mature on the data management side of things. So if we look at the future, it's investment in people, process and technology within the data management space being increased and then helped along with these technology innovations that will help ensure that organisations are able to get this quality data for whatever reason that they're doing it for, whether it's geosciences or environmental or social or any ESG type of thing. They're able to get this quality data at velocity, so it's getting into the hands of the right people so they can make confident decisions. That's, I guess, where I see the future of data management going.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much for speaking on the podcast.
Thanks very much. No, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Acquire Connected. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share and subscribe on your podcast player.
Thanks for listening to the Acquire Connected podcast channel. Find us at acquire.com.au.